Pro Football Focus is garbage. To come out here and say Dak Prescott is the NFC East MVP for the last 5 years, number one, after him only being in the league 4 years is crazy anyway. Why don't you just say the last 4 years? These are the guys they got. They got Dak Prescott, they got Carson Wentz, they got Kirk Cousins, they got Eli Manning, and they got Odell Beckham Jr. Come on, man. It don't make no sense. It's a reach to even put Odell up there and not have, Ezekiel Elliott up there, in my opinion, but we're going to get into that. This is how they came up with it, though. I'm not going to read it. I'm going to put it up here just for you guys. It's a lot to read. I don't want to waste my time reading over how they come up with this, but it don't make no sense to me, man. Simulating the team's expected performance, that alone should disqualify Dak Prescott. I don't understand the logic behind it. Maybe y'all can help me understand the logic behind it. We're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this video coming up shortly, man. Lil Brunson back at you with the back at you, and I am the best reporting on the Eagles. Who's in charge at the top? I just want to know who's in charge at the top. This is the worst take by Pro Football Focus. Very misleading. And then the way that they try to break it down and give an explanation of how they got to this conclusion is complete blasphemy. To sit here and tell me that in the last 5 years of the NFC East, Dak Prescott was the most important player, the most valuable player of the division is blasphemy for a multitude of reasons. Now let's talk about Dak Prescott for a minute as an individual, and let's talk about other people who I believe who have been more valuable than Dak Prescott. First of all, I don't even think Dak Prescott has been the most valuable person on his team in the last 5 years, let alone in the entire division. I don't think so. Listen, man. Dak Prescott is a good football player. I don't want this to turn into I can't stand Dak Prescott because he played for the Dallas Cowboys. This is the thing, man. Dak Prescott gets most of the praise and the boost from the media because he plays for the Dallas Cowboys. You know what I'm saying? The brand is bigger than the player there. So therefore, to equalize that, you have to boost the player to match the brand. They did it with Romo, who ain't amount to nothing, and now they're doing it with Dak Prescott. You have errors. The Romo error didn't result in the Dallas Cowboys getting to the NFC Championship game. The Dak Prescott error so far hasn't resulted to that either. Do y'all know that the Jacksonville Jaguars have been a better team in the last 20 years than the Dallas Cowboys? In terms of how far they've gotten. Haven't the Jaguars hosted a AFC Championship game? Not hosted, have they been a part of one or hosted, however you want to say it. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars actually have more playoff wins than the Dallas Cowboys in the last 20 years. We talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars as if they're the scum on the bottom of our shoe in terms of franchises go and the respect of the name that we put on these guys. Dak Prescott has not been more valuable in the last 5 years than Carson Wentz. He has not been more valuable in the last 5 years than Ezekiel Elliott. I'll put him third on the list, probably third on the list. Now, Carson Wentz is second on the list to Dak Prescott, which is blasphemy. Dak Prescott's best season statistically came last season. He had 2,000-yard receivers, a running back with 1,300 rushing yards, and they won 8-8. I repeat, the Dallas Cowboys did not make the playoffs last year, and it was all Dak Prescott's fault. No matter how these Dallas Cowboys content creators want to spin a narrative, no matter how the media want to spin a narrative, it was all Dak Prescott's fault. I'll explain why. Dak Prescott has 0 game-winning drives. Had Dak Prescott just had one more game-winning drive, one more, the Dallas Cowboys would have made the playoffs and won a division, justifying his payday, which he still hasn't gotten. So his franchise don't even think he's that important. Number 2, Ezekiel Elliott is the most important player on that franchise. Always has been, always will be. Ezekiel Elliott averages 1,300 yards a season on the ground. Carson Wentz don't have nobody that productive at just running the ball, pure running the ball. Ezekiel Elliott averages 292 carries a season. He would be averaging 300 carries a season had he not got suspended. But he still was suspended and still averages 1,300 yards a season on average. Dak Prescott has not missed a game. Correct. Has not missed a game in the last 4 years. He doesn't lead that division in touchdown passes in the last 4 years. In fact, he's tied with a guy who missed 8 games. Dak Prescott has games every season of him not being able to throw a touchdown pass against top 10 teams. Dak Prescott has struggled against top 10 teams last season. Let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys' good season since Dak Prescott has been there. Zeke ran wild his rookie year. They get the first round seat. They get the first round bye. Zeke is the focal point of the offense. When Zeke was not available due to the suspension, the Dallas Cowboys did not make the playoffs. Dak Prescott's best year, statistically, the Dallas Cowboys did not make the playoffs. Now, Pro Football Focus said they're coming up with these numbers based on like teams' expectations. The Dallas Cowboys are expected to make the playoffs like every year. Every year they got the media in their hip pocket every year, saying how they go to the Super Bowl. Has not happened in 20 years. Has not happened in 20 years. I think Doug Peterson is more important to his franchise than Dak Prescott is to his franchise. If you want to be real. The last 5 years, who'd the ring come through? Who got the ring? The Philadelphia Eagles. You don't get that ring if it ain't for Carson Wentz 33 touchdown passes that season. For his MVP-like season, you don't get it. So I don't understand what Pro Football Focus is trying to achieve by pulling this wool over our eyes. It don't make no sense. It's ridiculous. Look at what Carson Wentz did last year. There's not another quarterback in the National Football League who could have made the playoffs with the wide receiver core that Carson Wentz had to play with. What is Pro Football Focus talking about? When Carson Wentz was drafted, the fortunes of that franchise changed 4 years ago. A Lombardi was brought to the city. Dak Prescott ain't do nothing different for the Cowboys. Dak Prescott has been available in every game. Every game called upon, he's been available. He's been a quarterback every game. Nobody had to come in and bail Dak Prescott out. What has it resulted in? The same old song. Had somebody probably stepped in and bailed him out, they might have seen the potential of somebody better than him. But he's been available. Let Andy Dalton get some playing time, and y'all going to see that nothing changes no matter who you plug in there, because Zeke is the focal point. Pro Football Focus, man, they don't even got no explaining to do. Pro Football Focus is following the same theatrics, the same circus. They jumping through the same rings of fire that everybody else does every season, and talking about the Dallas Cowboys. The last 5 years. And then to not even have Zeke on the list at all is criminal to me. Cousins is on the list. Odell Beckham. Eli Manning. Cousins, Beckham, and Eli Manning. It makes no sense. The list makes no sense. To not have Zeke on the list is more appalling than to have Wentz second, in my opinion. It's more appalling. Zeke has been the most productive player in the NFC East the last 5 years, 4 years. It's been Zeke. It's been Zeke. Zeke has been the most utilized. They count on Zeke for so much. And for them to disrespect Zeke like this is ridiculous. It's repulsive. 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 Just to boost up Dak Prescott. Just to feed the ego of the Dallas Cowboys fan base. It makes no sense. Pro Football Focus is not keeping it thorough. They're not using common logic. They're making up these medicine. They're making up these theories and these algorithms to prove a point that shouldn't have to be proven. I'm appalled. But let me know what y'all think in the comments.